Today we're touring Prairie Dreams, featuring the work of Lanhee at the Okotoks Art Gallery, and we're going to begin by reading Lanhee's artist statement. She writes, "Alberta to me is all about the prairie. I fell in love with it at first sight and have been painting prairie scenes ever since. The fields seemed never-ending, stretching away into the horizon, like they still do in my imagination. The beauty of the colors and the wave of the fields leads me to another world, to my dreams of the prairie." Now, Lanhee moved to Okotoks 10 years ago from South Korea and rapidly began to work on depicting her new surroundings. She uses oil paints and adds texture by dipping yarn into gesso. You'll notice familiar scenes as we explore Lanhee's work, images that have become iconic symbols of Alberta, our Rocky Mountains, for example, and our dense forests. Here you can see the dimension Lanhee adds to the painting, achieved with the use of yarn and gesso, that gives the impression of pine needles directly on the canvas, providing more than a view of the forest, but the texture of the trees therein. Another example of a familiar symbol of Alberta is seen here in the rolling landscapes of the foothills and our expansive views. It's when we get close to these pieces that the extraordinary detail and texture becomes so much more apparent, adding a lot of interest and dimension to the landscape and the colors we see in this particular piece. And another familiar scene to Albertans, the incredible weather patterns and winds we experience, our Chinook skies and our incoming storms. Here we see a huge prairie sky depicted, both expressive and familiar. As we once again move closer to the painting, the texture and the detail of the piece becomes more apparent, including the subtle but beautiful colors used. And here, another familiar scene, a wheat field. What makes this piece particularly intriguing is that, in contrast to some of the other stretching views offered, here it is the foreground that takes up most of the space, and our focus goes not to the details stretching far into the landscape, but to those set right before us. And finally, here, Lanhee has chosen a more abstract representation of this familiar setting. Lines, shapes, colors now serve as reminders of the iconic Alberta landscape we know and love so well. We hope you enjoyed today's tour, and we thank you so much for joining us. There will be plenty more to come.